Within the last year or so, these tiny portable hot shoe mounted light meters have been getting more and more popular. Companies like Reflex Lab and Astro Ori are creating new editions every year it seems, but there's one that I was recently sent that seems to potentially trump them all. The LD meter is not only a light meter, but also a laser rangefinder as well. Now with many cameras, like most 35mm SLRs that most of us are probably shooting with, they have through the lens focusing, so it's easy to know where to focus. However, on many older film cameras and folding film cameras, you need some way to gauge the range so you can correctly guess the proper focal point. Many of these rangefinders are fairly large, bulky, hot shoe mounted machines that are not very modular. In addition to these rangefinders with these cameras, you're still going to need a light meter, which as you can imagine with all of your other gear can get quite cumbersome. Well, that's where the LD meter comes in. Doubling down its functions with both distance and light metering, this little tool can cut down the things you need to bring quite substantially. I looked online and this seems to be the only distance laser meter for photography that I can find, and it has a light meter with it. Pretty cool. Okay, so let's take a look at it. The screen is on the top and showcases a variety of things, which we'll get to here in a second. The top also has a scrolling wheel for navigating the menu, and the back has the actual action button itself. The action button is used to meter for distance or for the light, and it's also used to toggle between the settings to change aperture, shutter speed, ISO, and toggle between feet and meters for the laser. On the side is the switch to toggle the laser on and off. The front has different opticals for both meters, and the bottom has the hot shoe mount. When I've been using it, I set my ISO and then switch to aperture priority and select my desired aperture. From here, when I push the back action button, it shows which shutter speed or distance to set my lens to. I can also change it to shutter priority if I want by double clicking the action button twice. To change the ISO or distance, simply hold the button for a couple seconds and you'll see it toggle between the two. The ISO goes all the way up to 8000 ISO, which is pretty remarkable. I'm not even sure what you'd use that for, but hey, it's there. As for the shutter speed, it goes up to 1/8000th of a second, and apertures are f1 to f64. As for the light meter, it can reach up to 50 meters, which is pretty nice. I'd imagine that anything past that and you'd set your focus for infinity most likely, so yeah. The meter is also USB-C, which seems to be the most universal charger at this point, which is a good touch over it being battery powered. As for using the laser, it actually comes with a little magnetic sight, which clips to the side and you can look down this and see where the laser is pointing exactly. I know that this is one of my issues with it, is how do I know exactly where it's looking at if I'm standing 50 meters away? Especially with grandiose landscapes where the shadows and highlights can be next to each other and drastically different, but this little iron sight seems to help with that. Now the question is, how accurate is the sight, which is to be seen here in a second, but seemingly the biggest problem that I can think of has a solution for it already, which is pretty nice. While I don't have a folding camera and all my cameras have through the lens metering, this is still a great tool for a light meter in and of itself, and I still wanted to test out the laser and rangefinder to see how it does. So I threw it on my Nikon and went out to shoot a couple test things with it to see how it does. Alright, so I'm having shot with it for an afternoon. You know, I think it's right up there in line with all of the other light meters, the small light meters that I've shot. I think at this point they're getting really good for the price point. And with this one having the rangefinder, it's like a 2-for-1, which I don't think it's that much more of a price increase. So if you need a rangefinder, I think this would be the one to get. With that being said, I did leave it on accidentally on the way up to the hike here. So the laser was technically on for, I don't know, probably like an hour and a half, and the battery is still basically full. So a good testament to the battery, especially up in these colder climates. So I'm noticing that the light meter is honestly pretty damn accurate. Compared to the Sekonic, it can be a couple stops off, but I'm also doing some pretty grandiose landscapes out here. So I'm not expecting it to be as accurate as, you know, the dedicated light meter per se. I am, however, having a little bit of issues with the laser, being able to see it. You know, I thought, especially with the snow and the trees, it would be super easy, but when it's a little further away, especially on like a tree or something, it can be a little tough to, you know, see the laser, to be completely honest. Now, with that being said, I don't think you're going to be using this to meter something that's super far away that you aren't gonna really be able to see the laser, if that makes sense. It's gonna be mostly like closer up stuff, but I do think it's of note that I think that is the one, I guess, shortcoming of it that I will say. And it's funny, Shoot Film Like a Boss made a video about the same light meter, and he kind of had the same complaint. And initially I was honestly kind of doubting that it would, I don't even know, really be that much of a con, I guess. But now that I've gotten out and used it, I do see where he's coming from. But like I said, I think for most stuff, this is going to be for closer, not macro shots, but stuff that isn't like 30 meters and out. I think you're going to be less likely to use it for that, but who knows?
Okay, so I ended up finishing the hike and then just heading home. I was honestly a little photo fatigued of this hike, as I just shot another video, which you'll see soon here as well. But I did finish up the roll and shoot a handful of images, which I liked with this meter. Having this small of a meter just to throw on an already small 35mm SLR has been awesome.
Okay, so now that we're back home, I've tested it and seen the results. What do I think? Honestly, I think this is a really nifty little tool. While yes, I don't shoot with a folding camera, I tried to simulate it as best as I could with my Nikon SLR, and the results seem to be up there with my normal workflow using the normal focusing and the Sekonic light meter, which is great news. One issue that Shoot Film Like a Boss, another film YouTuber, had was having to walk up to the laser to ensure that it's on the correct thing, which at 50 meters away can be quite a pain. But from what I can tell, that's what the magnetic iron sight is for on the side, so yeah.
Despite this, having used it, I understand his point of view. Like I said earlier, if it's much farther than 30 to 50 meters, you'll be shooting with a smaller aperture anyway, where the focusing accuracy will matter slightly less.
The light meter is also quite accurate and is honestly pretty easy to use, which for the price and size compared to my $250 or $300 Sekonic, pretty good value. Regardless, it's cool to see these little gadgets from a variety of different companies come out and continuously get better and better. I know the other hot shoe mounted light meters that I've used have been quite impressive in the past as well, so it seems like the technology in these things is getting pretty consistent. I also got a promo code for you guys, so make sure to check that out in the description if you are interested at checking out the LD meter. Otherwise, I think that's going to wrap it up for this one, guys. Let me know down in the comments if you've used any of these light meters or if you use a rangefinder for your folding camera and if this is something that would interest you. I'd also love to hear which light meter you guys are using, whether it be a handheld one, the Light Meter phone app, or any of these hot shoe mounted ones. Personally, I think it's really interesting to see the different workflows between photographers, still getting to a similar outcome, but having much different workflows, equipment, etc. to get there. Otherwise, I think it's going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Till the next one, stay safe, stay shooting. Adios.